Hello, I'm Gary Rayburn from Forbes Rayburn, the family butcher in Huntly. I'm a third generation butcher. My grandfather started the business in 1963, so we're almost 60 years old. The purpose of this video today is to give crofters a better understanding and what we're looking for in the finished product for selling as meat boxes. This is our dry aged chill where we hang all the different parts of the carcasses. As you can see, this fridge is full of our own beef. I rear my own beef and lamb, and this is where it hangs. So if you step inside, you'll see at this side it's all the tops of the animals, and that side it's roastings, and we have the front ends. This is an Angus cross animal. It's 155 kilos side weight, and it's an R4L. So this is a pretty good example, a good commercial what we would look for. But this is a side of beef here. So as you see, when the animal gets killed, it comes to us in two sides, and the side is split into four main parts. So starting off, this is what we call the top. This is where your silver side roasts come from, your top sides, and your best round steak. So that's the top, and that's like the back end of the animal. Then you come down, this is what we call the roasting. So this is where, that's like the rump there, so that's attached to the top. So that's where your rump steaks come from, your sirloins in the middle of the back, and then that's your rib roast there. And in the middle there, that's where your fillet is. It's placed in the middle of the animal. So that's your roasting there. So that's where all your steak cuts. So this two here, your top and your roasting, we like to hang them at least 4 weeks so that your roasts and your steaks are nice and tender. So I would advise you, if you're doing a beast, to hang this pieces of meat for at least 4 weeks, and that'll give the maximum flavour and tenderness to your animal. Then we go on to, this is what we call the front end of the animal. This is the front leg here. So this is where your shoulder steak comes from, your diced shoulder steak, your boiling beef, your brisket there, and then your mince. And then this is the flank of the animal here. This is like the belly of the animal. So mainly this, you can have a skirt in the middle as well. It's like an old-fashioned cut, and you can have your thick rib, that's boiling beef in the bone. It's real old-fashioned cuts, but some people like them for soup. And then the rest of this, the leanest parts will get picked for mince, and then the fattier parts for sausages and burgers. The biggest secret of all is to have it hung to get the maximum flavour and tenderness. So there's no point in rearing your animal for like a 3 year, the process of putting the bull in with the heifer or whatever, until maybe 2 years it's fat. There's no point in going all that way and then cutting up your beast at the end, just getting it cut as fresh, because at the end of the day, that when it tastes good. And that's why sometimes us as independent butchers, we win over supermarkets, because the supermarkets don't hang their beef. It's maybe killed one day and then it's cut up the next. Here we have a half lamb, and this is one of my own lambs that I've reared myself. It's a black-faced lamb, completely on its mother's milk, grass-fed all the way, so you couldn't get more natural than you see here, which a lot of you crofters will have as well. So like the beef, we have the front shoulder here, where your slower cooking joints are. You come along the back, this is where your chops are. When you see when I'll cut in, there's a double loin end and a single loin end. You have your flank of lamb, a breast of lamb, and then you have your jigget of lamb here. So that's the back end of the animal, and that's the front end of the animal. So we'll just turn it round and we'll cut it into the four main parts, and you'll see where everything comes from. So we always cut the front end at 5 ribs, and that's the front shoulder. So you can look at a carcass all the time, but you only know how good it is when you cut into it. So as you see, it's a nice eye, it's a nice covering of fat there, and also you have the front shank here. So that's your options there, but having it in the bone, you've no waste, and when you're cooking it, you get the flavours of the bone. But when you bone it out, you're losing some with taking the bones out. But then again, it's easier carving for you. So that's the shoulder. Then we'll cut off the middle of the lamb here. So separate the jigget from the loin. So as you see, that's the middle there, and that's the lamb chops there, and that's a flank. So I'll take off the flank here, or the breast of lamb. Now, that's your flank or breast of lamb. A lot of folk can bone it out, roll it and stuff it, or you can cut it into bits for soup there. Your other option is to trim it, all the bones out, and take that and make that into sausages and burgers. So that's your options with that there. And then we have, this is the lamb chops here, and in here you'll see the lamb's kidney and suet as well. So we'll just trim it out here. So we're taking the suet out. So there's not a lot you can do with that, but you can use the lamb's kidney there. So as you see, you've got a single loin end here, and then you've a double loin end. So when we speak about the double loin end, it's got the fillet, like your fillet steak and beef, a fillet in the middle there. So that's why we call it double loin end. So we can just trim this up. So there's two ends. So we'll take that out. So that's your single loin end there. So if you want, you can make chops there, or you can take this out and make a rack of lamb. So that's what you're looking for, a bit of covering of fat and a good eye muscle there. So it's your lamb chops. And then we go into the jigget of lamb. Here you've the option, you can take off the shank of lamb there, and then you can sell it as a whole jigget there, or you can take off the chump end. Such your jigget there. If you want, you can have the whole leg, or you can split that in two if it's just for two people. And you can also take off the shank there, so you've options what you can do with the leg. So that's your options for the lamb, but it's up to each individual what they want, and it just gives you an idea of what can be done with it. We've spoken about beef and we've spoken about lamb, and I've tried to explain the different cuts. I haven't showed you pork, but we cut up a lot of pigs to people, and sometimes the problem we find with pigs is they come in too fat. And one thing I would say, if you're going to go into meat boxes and that, is watch how you feed the animals, because if you're just keeping a couple of pigs, or 3 or 4, you tend to go to the rare breeds and maybe buy a rare breed pig. And the trouble with these pigs, they're kind of slow growing, and they're not meant to be force fed with a lot of barley or whatever. So watch what you're buying and feed it accordingly. Same way the beef, the pork and the lamb, the native breeds always tend to be more slow growing and more grass fed based diets, whereas your continentals do need a bit of extra feeding to push them on. So that's my only advice when buying your animals, if you're doing this meat boxes, just watching the feeding, because at the end of the day it will show through an animal, and you want to get as much out of the animal as you can. The top tips that I would advise if you're thinking of selling meat boxes is, before you do it, research what you actually think will sell. Here, speak to potential customers or family and friends what they would like to have in their meat box, because what works with some people doesn't work with others. At the end of the day, it's no use getting a beast cut up and you sell all the sausages but you can't sell steaks, or you can sell all the steaks but you can't sell sausages. So you have to try and get a mix, and maybe the thing to do is, hey, select cuts, but know what you're going to sell and research what you think will sell.